Okay, so welcome to Master in the Mind podcast, Seth. How's your experience been at the conference so far?
Thanks for the invitation. Yeah, I'm about ready to hit a bus to Stockholm, and it's been a great experience. I wish that I ran this morning and saw DreamHack a little bit. Found an open door. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah,
But yeah, I wish I would have been able to see more of the competition. But yeah, it's been great connecting, meeting with a lot of people that I've only interacted with via social media and Zoom calls. So
Yeah.
it's pretty neat.
that's been great like that.
Yeah, I
hasn't
think
it?
the only person at this conference that I've met face to face was Nico back in 2018 at the University of California Irvine Esports Conference. So
Okay.
it's the only, everybody else is all virtual friends, colleagues, whatever you want to call it.
That's been great.
Well, you guys have done a fantastic job sort of organizing everything, so well done, honestly. It's been fantastic from our perspective as well. It's been great to learn, all the different pillars of esports, whether it's performance, sort of business side. So, yeah, well,
I think it's been great how many sectors are here as well. Like that's what surprised me the most, I think. Not like I was expecting more sports psychs, but it's great that we get to see everyone else's perspective as well. But yeah, no, for the listeners, if you could sort of introduce yourself. I know that we got a bit carried away with the conference there, but yeah, introduce yourself to the
Sure.
listeners.
I'm Dr. Seth Jenny. I teach in the Department of Exercise Science and Athletic Training at Slippery Rock University of Pennsylvania, which is in the United States near Pittsburgh. I am the associate editor of the Journal of Electronic Gaming and Esports, which is by the book publisher Human Kinetics. I'm also the deputy editor of the International Journal of Esports. And at Slippery Rock, I teach esports courses within our undergraduate minor in esports, which started last fall. And I'm also the faculty advisor of our club team there.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I saw you co-created one of the first undergraduate majors in esports. And I was reading around your research. We understand you've been very influential in providing a purpose for higher education in an esports academic program. There'll be a lot of parents listening, watching this podcast that will benefit from you discussing with us the purpose of an esports academic program in higher education. So could you elaborate on that, the purpose?
So in 2018, I got approached by Dr. Joey Gariziak from Shenandoah University in Virginia. And we created the curriculum for one of the first multi-track esports majors in the United States. So that one has a focus on the management side of it, and then another track which is focused on communications, and then another track which I primarily wrote, which was the focus on the performance exercise science piece to it. And really, if you go on International Journal of Esports and you search esports.edu, there's a 47-page paper that we have published. It's open access on there, which inventories at that time, which I think that's probably about a year old or so, maybe a year and a half old now. We found 95 academic degree programs put on by higher ed institutions that ranged from esports bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, certificate programs, diplomas, minors. And then even after it was published 2 months later, I did an update on the Esports Research Network website, which provided 15 more. So even from publication to like a couple months later, So the focus of these degree programs varies. The majority of them, 80% of them, focus on business or management side of esports marketing, if we clump that all together, because it's hard to differentiate some of those because of the curriculum is pretty similar in that area. And the next probably biggest chunk would be communications, streaming, broadcasting, casting, those types of things. And there's not many focused on the performance coaching side of it, which is interesting, which is sort of a gap in the market for you entrepreneurs out there. So the majority of the degree programs, so the master's, bachelor's, diplomas, face-to-face, and then the certificate programs are primarily online. What they are supposed to do, like any continuing education program, is to provide you the knowledge, skills, and abilities to acquire a job and be successful in that career field, right?
Yeah.
Well, what these programs are doing is that they're utilizing esports as the hook, as the motivation, as the attention grabbing factor to try to get people to learn these transferable skills, whether it be research skills, communication skills, teamwork skills, marketing skills, depending upon the focus of the program. There is a danger in some of these programs as we did our research, which I came up with the term esportifying a curriculum. So let me explain that. For example, we came across a online master's degree that was called Esports Management, and then when we looked at the curriculum, that same institution had a online master's degree in sport management. They added a intro to esports class, what you would call module, to the program, and voila, now they've got a master's in esports management. And so some of these programs are a little bit predatory, I would say, and they might have instructors that have no background in esports. They might have a background in marketing or management or economics or whatever that is, and then they're asked to teach some of these classes. So you have to definitely do your research on the individual institutions to make sure that they have experience in there, that they have connections to the industry, and the better programs are going to have experiential learning opportunities, what we call internships, field experiences where they're actually in the field working on and utilizing those skills that they're learning about in the classroom.
Yeah. You mentioned the sort of performance side, so the coaching. Do you think you will see that evolve, so becoming like potentially one sort of degree in the future? Do you see that happening, or do you think it's best to keep like a multidisciplinary sort of degree and a balance between the different fields?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think an interdisciplinary program just called esports, and it's not focused in a particular area of esports. I think an undergraduate minor is appropriate for that. If it's a bachelor's degree in esports and it's not focused, so you're getting information and courses from all of the different areas, I don't know whether you're getting enough of the information you need for whatever job you're going to acquire. So, for example, let's take communications program. All right, let's take one I have no clue about because I'm exercise science. All right.
Good choice.
Let's take a bachelor's degree in communications. All right, and now let's call it esports communications.
Yeah.
What classes out of the existing communications program are you going to take out to try to teach esports? Right. It's the same thing with our exercise science degree program at Slippery Rock. It's we have these discussions. It's like we have a curriculum to prepare exercise scientists, and so if we added an esports science program, it's like, well, our students already taken 120 credits.
Yeah.
Are we going to take out anatomy and physiology, or conditioning physiology, or what credits we got to take out to replace with some esports specific classes? So, you have to watch, and I would definitely lend to even a master's degree where, let's say you've got a sport management undergrad and now you want to learn more about specifically how those business types of skills and knowledge can be brought into the esports industry. Well, that's continuing education, right? So a master's degree might be more appropriate, but I definitely think that the specific narrowed focus within the industry is probably an overall better plan than an interdisciplinary, esports, because you want to make sure that you're covering all your bases with whatever part of the industry is you're most interested in working in.
Yeah.
I know it's a long answer, but
No,
That's
it's
really
good.
interesting. Yeah, I was just gonna say it's important to have that sort of baseline and not sort of pick out the important bits of a curriculum, I guess. And an important part, like, so my research is very much focused on sports psychologists' experiences working in esports. So how can we best prepare these professionals to work in that setting? And because we haven't received any esports specific training, so I guess it's the same sort of issue there. So are we going to see sports psychology curriculums integrate anything esports specific in the future? So
yeah,
it's like, yeah, so it's
and that would be so let's say that there isn't a sports psychology program that you would maybe have a track in esports. So then you would hopefully have esports specific courses within that sports psychology degree program, I think would be the most appropriate. Here's the issue. Who's teaching those classes? And is that instructor able to provide examples to esports? That's where the problem is right now, where you look at the Esports Research Network, and I'd love to do a demographic survey to see how many people are a PhD student or that they have finished their doctorate within the last year or two. And so I guess my point is that there's not a lot of people who have experience and have advanced education to teach in higher ed right now.
Yeah.
I just got an email the other day from an institution that appeared to create a bachelor's degree in exercise science relating to esports. It's an interdisciplinary esports major, and they said that they posted the job and there were hardly any applicants because they required a doctorate, PhD or equivalent, a terminal degree. And I don't think that there's many people who currently have a doctorate that have also esports experience, because it's such a new field.
Yeah. How's it sort of been received so far? Like, have you got any feedback from parents, from the students? Yeah.
From our program,
Yeah.
so we just started last fall, so our students haven't graduated yet. But really, that's the ultimate litmus test: is what's the job placement? And
Yeah.
For our undergraduate minor, the people that are in that are comm majors, computer science majors. So what they're doing is they're differentiating themselves on the resume, that not only do they have computer science communications experience, but now they've got esports specific training that will open up hopefully more doors for them to be able to, if they want to work in that industry, they can do so, and they have training in that. So yeah, I think I'll have to, you have to ask me another probably a year
We'll have
from
to do a
now,
part two.
because we don't have any graduates from our minor yet.
Okay. From sort of the initial findings, though, what would you say are some things you're looking to improve? What have been some strengths so far?
For the program, or just in general for esports education?
For your program.
For our program, so one thing that we are adding, which I think is a great benefit. So I teach an introduction to esports and a current issues in esports health and society.
Okay.
Those are required for our undergraduate minor, but also they are liberal studies courses. I don't know if you're familiar with the liberal arts institutions, where our student, they certainly complain about classes that aren't specific for their major, and they have these liberal studies requirements to help them be a better human being, right? And so my point is, I get a lot of students that take it as a liberal studies requirement, and it's definitely something that they enjoy, because it's not part of the norm, and they're sort of mind blown that there's an esports class on campus, number one. But a course that we're adding this next term is a course put on by the communications department called Esports. It's called Sport and Esports Production, and it's training the students how to do TV broadcasts as well as streaming broadcasts. And there will be certain specific curriculum for esports streaming put on by a guy named Dr. Nick Artman. And so when he was developing that course, he had me review the proposal that went through the university curriculum action. And yeah, looking forward to having that as more experiential type of training than that minor.
For sure. I had a question in terms of like a call to action for researchers, for other universities, like in terms of expanding like your research. What would you say to other universities, other researchers from now? What needs to be done to expand this?
Great question. I think that a lot of esports research in the pandemic had a significant impact on this. Is that it's a lot of self-report survey research. If you look at esports research, and so we're starting to get more qualitative interviews and focus groups, which I think digs even deeper to the why questions, which is awesome. And that that type of research can help inform the quantitative research that needs to be done. And so, to answer your question, I would love to see more intervention experimental research that requires advanced research skills. It requires more resources. It requires more time and money. But that's something that is going to, when you're doing those controlled, randomized controlled experiments, you're going to get more specific evidence for coaching practice, and we can see more of a cause and effect relationship rather than these correlational things that you're sort of still guessing whether that next training variable impacted the results or not.
Yeah.
So an example is some past research looking at correlation between the amount of exercise somebody does in their skill rank in esports. It's definitely good information to have, but I'd rather see harder evidence of controlled experiment of people performing exercise and looking at the impacts of acute as well as longitudinal amounts of exercise on esports performance rather than just correlational.
For sure. I would love to see that personally as well. I'd love to read those papers.
And that's the one study I did with Joanne Donahue with New York Institute of Technology, looking at the impact of walking and rest breaks.
Yes, I've seen that. I read that.
And I'd like to do a similar study, but control for the esports performance a little bit more, because we weren't able. Our performance markers were kill death ratio as well as wins and losses with first person shooter esports players, and that wasn't overly controlled. So I'd like to have a more closed esports performance indicator for those.
Okay. So yeah, that was more about like your research and what you do in a Slippery Rock. I wanted to talk to you about why we're here today, the conferences. It's well known that you speak at a variety of conferences, and I just wanted to know, like, what's the motivation behind that for you? What message are you trying to spread? Why do you do it?
Yeah, I like making money.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's always good to
travel.
Yeah, I definitely like to travel. For my undergrad, I did a semester at the University of Limerick in Ireland. My student taught health and physical education in Mexico City. I did my master's at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. So yeah, I'm definitely I love traveling. So for those people listening in Hawaii, I'm available.
Yeah,
same here.
Yeah. But as far as contributions to the field, certainly, I have kids that like to play video games, and I have concerns with amounts of physical activity. I have concerns with playing too much, and I'm not. I don't know if I want to use the term addiction, but it's certainly a concern for any parent, and so I especially am really concerned about looking at the impacts of physical activity on performance, because I think when hopefully, and I don't go into the research with a bias, like trying to skew my results, like whatever the results are the results, but I believe my hypothesis is that physical activity improves cognition, which will then improve esports performance. but I want to do more of those types of randomized controlled studies, because once we get that evidence, hopefully people are going to be like, yeah, maybe playing 2 more hours isn't as good as going for a walk or going for a jog or a bike ride, and that will also help me. And so taking a break and doing some physical activity is important.
It links to sort of what we're doing in terms of burnout.
Yes.
You know,
Self-care.
yeah, self-care. You know,
Well-being.
playing too much can actually decrease your performance. So yeah, that's a message we're trying to spread
Yeah,
as
for
well.
sure.
But when I was doing my research on you, you consulted in the E-League. Is that right?
Yeah, I went down to Atlanta, and I prepared like so much material for them,
Yeah.
and they wanted me to analyze a particular league, various League of Legends plays, and they sent me the video, but they wanted it to be sort of like talking about the motor skills required to perform. And I said, that's awesome. You've got the screen capture of the characters, you know, the actual gameplay. I was like, you have the video of the players and their physical movements with the keyboard and the mouse. They're like, no. Well, like, so it turned, I was prepared, but I could only do so much. So I ended up primarily, they just put out a video or two focused on the extent to which esports is a sport, which is one of the papers that I wrote early on, my first major paper in the esports field. Before that, I was doing more integrating sport video gaming and motion-based video gaming into physical education curriculum, where I started doing that in about 2011.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, you briefly mentioned your research, that walk-in and esports correlations to the. I wanted to talk to you about, maybe you've got some tips for esports players. You briefly mentioned, like, is it worth playing 2 hours or going on a run for 20 minutes? Would you have any tips for any esports players that are watching about physical considerations, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly hear the old recommendation of the 20-20-20 rule. I'm sure people have talked about that. I don't know how feasible that is if your game stands for 20 minutes, which is every 20 minutes take a 20-second break, and you look at an object in the distance for longer than 20 seconds to give yourself a mental break, as well as for eye strain.
Okay.
And not taking the break and then immediately going to your phone and looking at your phone, which is probably a major issue with players.
Okay.
So that, but I think that the idea that the only way I can get better is if I play more is probably my biggest recommendation that you should not believe. Tradition, if you were to tell, I'm a distance runner, and you were to even tell that to an ultra marathoner, they still have to rest. And the physiology behind adaptation of your body occurs when you're at rest. It's not from the actual workout. The workout stresses the body, but the adaptations occur whenever you are at rest. And so the whole grind mindset and the grind culture needs to be shifted. I'm not going to try to overstate findings, because I don't know what's the exact amount of, all right, you shouldn't game past this time frame, because that's something that we need to figure out for sure. But whenever the fatigue's setting in, when the eye strain is setting in, I mean, obviously you went too far. When you're out for a run and your legs are starting to hurt, or your muscles start to seize up, I mean, you definitely went too far for that. So taking breaks and then integrating health related lifestyle into your training program, because the nutrition and the sleep and the physical activity is all going to help you be able to maintain your focus longer.
100%.
I love the take that you mentioned about grinding is also incorporating rest, right? That's the shift we can reframe grinding. Grinding also means taking time for yourself, self-care, recovery.
I think as well, like, in addition to that, maybe I should have added this in the TikTok that I made, but Goose Breeder mentioned it. I don't know whether he was in the talk yesterday.
No, I was out running.
Yeah. I go, that's a given. That's a given. Yeah. Frida mentioned she doesn't really play that many pubs anymore. Rather, she utilizes her time watching other people play, analyzing performance. So there's so many other things other than just playing the game that you can do to benefit your performance, and you're sort of attacking from all angles then, which I think should be added into the grind culture.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd just add that. But in terms of your future goals and ambitions, to sort of wrap this podcast up, where are you looking to go? What are your future goals? Maybe even add a running goal in there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm running the Houston half marathon in January. And so I was supposed to run Boston this past April, Boston Marathon. And I wore a pair of Nike Alpha Flies, which is one of the carbon fiber plated shoes that my first run in them, I did 12 miles in a treadmill. The second time I ran in them, and this is bad advice, so don't listen to this. You don't run long runs in new shoes.
Okay.
I did a 17 miler, and those shoes changed my my foot mechanics, the way that I land on my foot, to more on my forefoot, and it put too much stress on my Achilles, and I actually got a slight tear in my Achilles. So I was on crutches watching my wife run Boston this past April in Boston. And I had to use crutches for about 2 miles to go get my race number that I wasn't going to use. So
no.
anyway, back to the Houston. Yeah, I'd like to. My best half marathon is like a 1:17. That I'm 43 now, so at this point, I think I've reset my goals, and this might be for anybody that in the running culture. You have like what's called your master's record. So master's is typically when you're 40 and over.
Okay.
And so if you go to SethJenny.com and then click on a link on there about my running, I put like all my running PRs. Well, I have a new spreadsheet, which is my personal records. You guys call PBs, personal bests, for over 40. So I sort of like resets the clock.
That's good though.
And my over 40 best half marathon was like a 1:21-ish. So that's a running goal of mine. A research goal. I would love it if somebody in the physical activity, esports, gaming industry would provide me funding to do research. And that's one thing where I just got news like last week from the National Institutes of Health, feedback from an idea on a grant proposal to do that type of research to look at the impacts of physical activity on esports performance and mental health, actually. But it wasn't enough focus on mental health, and so they weren't interested. And so now I'm back to the drawing board looking for funding. There's a lot of esports orgs that I think blow smoke and say, hey, we really care about our players. We care about their health. Some of them they're building facilities and they're hiring nutritionists and trainers and, mental coaches, sports psychologists, hopefully, maybe over a mental coach. I don't know, probably offended some people there. But those people are doing it right. The other ones are like signing players for very short-term contracts. They're wanting short-term success, and they also are not wanting to put money toward long-term player health. And so I would love to see organizations contacting people like me and people in the Esports Research Network to conduct research. And I understand, I've competed not at a world level, but a high enough level in performance sport to know the demands on an athlete. And so you got to have the right researcher mindset to make sure that you are aware that you're not wanting to negatively impact performance. But if you're wanting to know some of the information that we don't know, you've got to put some time toward allowing researchers to work with the players and the coaches and the athletes. So that's another goal. And I just put up for a promotion of rank for professorship. So if an administrator from Slippery Rock University is listening, I think I've said Slippery Rock enough times. Let's get promoted.
We'll tag them in this. Seth promoted. Hashtag Seth promoted. But no, it's been a pleasure having you on and spending some time with us. I know that we've got a meeting soon, so Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for putting. I know you had some part in the conference. I know that
Not much is Toby and Brian.
Brian's been, he's been telling us a lot about all the stuff that he's been doing.
Well,
we could call it moaning, but it's been a pleasure.
For looking at the guests that you've had here on this podcast, I feel like they're like way up here and I'm like way down here.
Honestly, it's fantastic for us. Yeah, it's a learning experience for us. So yeah,
that's been great. Thank you so much.
All right,
And
thanks for the invitation.
yeah, we'll see you in the next one.
All right.